Welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast. I am Helen Veru. This podcast is dedicated to help anyone connected to preteens and teens to give them tools, empower and inspire teachers, high school senior leaders, and parents to build the future leaders of tomorrow. We discuss about controversial and relevant topics related to the world of education, the main problems you are facing, and solutions to help you navigate your journey. We want to make a positive change in education by bringing on experts that will give you a different perspective on how you can solve the hardship you are facing today. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Empowering the Next Generation podcast with me, Coach N. I am so grateful you're here with us today. We are igniting school communities, developing leaders, and also creating meaningful connections. And if you want to exit the classroom and learn how you can grow into your entrepreneurial journey, I would encourage you to join my free masterclass called From Educator to CEO. So thank you again for joining, for liking, for commenting on these posts, because we want to make a difference in education. Today we have an amazing speaker, again, as usual. Her name is Charle Peck. And Charle really is a keynote speaker and author, and she equips professionals in high pressure roles with tools to thrive under stress. Her keynotes, Thriving Under Pressure, along with her leadership toolkits, help individuals and teams perform at their best and create lasting impact across education, mental health, and helping as well professionals. So she consults with education leaders on how to lead through stress and complex student behavior using practical neurosciences informed strategies that support both staff and the systems. So welcome on board, Charle. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Hi, Helen. Thanks so much for having me
Yes. Where are you located at the moment?
in Kentucky.
Oh, wow. I am living in the Middle East at the moment, so it's a really big time difference. So let's dive into the subject, really. I know that we know that right now, many education leaders are navigating overwhelmed staff and escalating student behavior. So what are the patterns that you are seeing across schools, and why don't traditional solutions seems to be working anymore?
That's a great question. I'm glad you started there because I'm working with that all of the time.
Mm,
Students get stressed, teachers react because they're overwhelmed and they have
mm,
a lot of behaviors all at once. And the office gets notified, they send them to the office, and either the kids are just sent back into an environment where they're just feeling like there's no restoration there,
mm,
or they feel like the quote unquote bad kid. Sometimes there's an in-school suspension, and sometimes there's an out-of-school suspension. But regardless,
mm,
here's what's happening. Here's the pattern. We're pushing
mm,
kids out rather than trying to keep them in and connected to the teachers. And I'm not
mm,
saying that's never a place. It's never a time and place to have students removed. But the key is it's just so busy that there really isn't a chance to keep the kid there. They're missing instruction, which causes more behaviors. And there's a lot of animosity I'm seeing,
mm.
not all the time. And it's not anybody's fault. It's a system problem. So that's what I'm noticing. And so the traditional education system is punitive and it's isolating.
Mm.
So it's not working because it's pushing kids out rather than connecting them back to the community and the school and the people that are around our kids most of the time. And that's where
Mm.
it's really going to make a difference when we can do that.
And I love that. I can really see that there is a lack of connection. And I feel it's something, as you were saying, is because of the system. But leaders generally want to support teachers. They want to support their teachers. They want to support the student behavior as well. But often they end up layering on more initiatives that are not really working. So how can they respond in ways that actually work and help without really increasing burnout?
I just did a post on this. That's funny. It's about addressing the need. It's asking teachers what they need. It really
Mm,
needs to be simplified because teachers are struggling, and I know leaders are struggling to support them, but they want to. Everybody has a great heart here. It's the
mm,
system itself is designed in a way that is just too overwhelming. I mean, the initiatives are constantly shoved down the principal's throat, but
mm,
they actually have more power than they think. So what they need to do, or what they could do, is ask teachers, what is the most pressing issue with you right now? Or what do you need to do your job better? Or the way that you think it needs to be done better? Because giving them the voice is a huge first start. And then
Mm,
trying to have a conversation around it with giving them a skill or a tool that they can apply immediately in practice with each other. That is effective PD right now. That is what's helpful. So, not taking a new or another initiative, it's taking the initiative, which always is a good initiative, right? We wouldn't have
mm,
put them there in the first place. But
definitely.
taking that and simplifying it, and then simplifying the process, and then practicing.
Okay.
It's so important to do that.
Um, hearing you talking, I can see the heart, obviously, of teachers, of school leaders. They want the best for their team. However, I feel that there is not enough, I would say, strategy that can help them to connect and to bring, as you're saying, that teacher feedback, that authentic teacher feedback. Yes, most of them they want that feedback, but are they ready to hear the truth? And I think sometimes not everybody is ready to hear the truth about maybe their own leadership skills, maybe about what they're not doing right. And I feel it takes so much maturity for a leader to be open-minded, to be open-hearted, and to realize that obviously they are growing in their role as leaders. And not everybody is open to really constructive criticism. So yes, we can have amazing feedback, but is the person that we are actually talking to is just listening to us and really understanding us from that perspective. So I feel this is what is missing a lot in education, is really the desire to be able to listen to the person truly and not to listen to react or find just a solution straight away. Do I make sense on that?
It does make sense. And I know, Helen, in the work that you do, you see that all the time,
Mm,
right? And so the way I approach it is this. I mean, we're all human. We're all trying to do well. Leaders don't step into those roles without thinking about it and without a good
mm,
heart, honestly, because I know it gives you a little bit of power, the leadership role, but good leaders want to utilize their staff. They want to utilize the strengths of their staff. Sometimes they're just thrown into it though, and they don't know what to do or where to start, and they are drowning.
mm,
And that's what
mm,
I notice the most. So if they can have the capacity to just find a place of calm and build security within themselves, that is when I find that they can make the shift of listening to their staff. Here's what
mm,
I find, and the skills that, that I teach are about this. It's about how do we mitigate the problems we have within ourselves that are creating insecurity, that are creating overwhelm, and how do we find strength within ourselves in order to function better so that we can then show
mm,
up for other people and support them the way they need it? Because we are
mm,
boggled down by things. Honestly, Helen, there's a lot coming in from our childhood. That critical
yes.
voice we heard as a child, right? From people that we respected and let us down, or parents and caregivers who just couldn't give us what we needed at the time. Not that they were
Mm,
bad parents, just it just couldn't happen that way, or we couldn't effectively ask for it. And so we
yes.
change that critical voice from theirs to our own critical voice. And then
Mm,
we become leaders. And so then that insecurity festers. That's what I see, because these leaders are trying to do a great job, but then they have all of these expectations of a larger system, of the community, of parents that they never had that pressure from before. It's a tough role. It's a really
it
tough role.
is. It is a tough role. And I feel like, as you were saying, there are a lot of pressure on leaders to hold everything together, and
Yes.
really, but how can they lead effectively and support their teams without carrying the entire emotional and operational load themselves? Give us a
Yeah.
few tips. How can they do that?
Well, it goes back to a nervous system issue. I always go back to the nervous system because the nervous system is what's reactive. And
Mm,
so once we have awareness of how our body is responding to those insecurities, those fears, fear of failure, sometimes fear of success, fear of things getting too big, fear of being ostracized or judged.
mm,
And not everybody, a lot of people tend to say, oh, just have thick skin. You need thick skin as a leader. Okay, but it's deeper than that. It's so much deeper than that. So when they can do the work within themselves first and get to
mhm,
a place of stability, and then notice when they're feeling irritable and they're kind of climbing a ladder of conflict, is what the visual is that we use, climbing that conflict and then noticing enough to stop it and climb back down, and then come back to a place of calm and learning to sit in that discomfort. Those are
Mm,
skills that we need to learn as leaders. So the awareness piece is the biggest piece, because if you don't understand that you're there and you don't notice it, then we can't do
mm,
anything about it. Then we keep going in that reactive cycle and we're constantly
mm,
putting fires out. So
mm,
if we can have awareness of where we are sitting, how our nervous system is responding, we can then choose what to do next rather than be so reactive ourselves.
mm.
That's the
Mm.
first piece to it. But there are other skills we can have in place to build capacity within ourselves, not only to manage ourselves, but to respond more effectively to others.
Mm, I like that awareness. This is a big word. It's really allow people to really pause. But when do they do that? Do they do that in their free time? Do that in their office? When is the best time to really do it?
Always, as much
Always.
practice as they can, because the more awareness we have, the more in control we can feel. And that doesn't mean we need to control other people. In fact, it's way bigger than that. It's more powerful
Mm,
than having control over others. When we can have self control and self management and have calm, we can have clarity. And that way we can make decisions based on our own value systems. And then we don't have so much regret and that pain and shame that we carry around with us that affects how we react. Right. So if we can have that practice every day, it's not going to be perfect. But if we practice it, it becomes more reflexive, and we actually wire our brains to be more reflexively in the way that we want to respond rather than all the negativity and the reactivity. So it is a
mm,
rewiring and a reflexivity that we have to practice like a muscle.
on a regular basis. So when they are in crisis, they're under pressure, they just pause and just be like, okay, self-awareness. Why am I in my emotion? Why am I in my journey right now? And so they can actually work through that pressure with more calmness, as you were saying, and more clarity.
Yes, the clarity is important because the clarity helps us make decisions that make sense. And the
Mm,
clarity helps us make decisions along with the calm nervous system, right? Our body's not reacting, and therefore we don't want to yell, we don't want to avoid. We can have those tough conversations as leaders when we have clarity, because then we're actually accessing that part of our brain that has the problem solving mode on, the thinking, the critical thinking behind it. And so we can go into conversations thinking about how am I going to frame this? But
mhm,
when we practice that calm and when we practice that awareness, then we can ask very simple questions. And we have this is the other thing, Helen. People have got to keep things way more simple. Like the systems
mhm.
we were taught about, active listening, good stuff. But
Good.
it's good. It's all based on evidence. Like it's good.
Mm,
But do we have time to think about our posture and our tone of voice and how we're standing and all these words that we're supposed to? No, not when we're in the midst of chaos and crisis and busyness. And so
yes.
when we keep it simple and have a couple of phrases we go back to, such as what we teach leaders is ask like what your next move is going to be, is it helpful or hurtful? Is about what I'm going to say or do, is that helpful or hurtful? If
Mm,
it's helpful, go ahead and do it. If it's hurtful, you still have choice. You still have choice. You could continue doing what's not helpful. That gives you power of choice. However, you can predict the outcome. And if you don't think that it's going to help you and your team, then you can pause and shift and do something different.
I
So,
love that.
all of that comes with clarity and awareness.
I love that. And you talk about consultation differently than most people, I feel. So, what does effective and as well ongoing consultation for school and district leader really look like? So, how is it different from one of professional development or motivational sessions? How does it work for you? Professional development or motivational sessions? How does it work? How do you do that? The
Well, I start with
consultation.
their needs. I start with, instead of imposing mine on them and what I think needs to happen, I start with theirs. There have been many times where I thought I knew what they needed, or I met with a superintendent or whoever was hiring me, the school principal, for example, and they said, I want you to do this with staff. So then when I meet with staff or I meet with the team, they're telling me a different story. So my job
Mm,
is to listen to their story and try to
mm,
determine what their most pressing need is. So I'll do a needs assessment. I'll keep it very simple, but it's really listening to them. And then I design my
Mm.
program based on that. I have a framework. I have 9 essential skills. And
Wow.
sometimes I get to do that all the way through. I mean, I'm working with districts and cohorts. It's pretty awesome because it is skill
Mm.
building, capacity building.
Mhm. Awesome.
But I've also worked with teams where we started there and there was pushback. And I had to put my ego aside, which is really hard to do, Helen,
Mm.
right? Because we're egocentric. We
Definitely.
are. But I had to have that awareness to take a pause and say, I'm missing something here. What am I
Mm.
missing? And we
Mm.
spent an entire session learning about what their needs actually were. And it was about
Mm.
students who were struggling and their families, and they couldn't connect them to resources. And so
Mm.
I stopped my stuff, what I was planning, and I went and customized a package of resources for them to then share with their families and students. And I met their need that way. So
Nice. I
you
love
have to
that.
listen to their
So it's
needs
very
first.
personalized, very personalized. So you talk about 9 skills. So share with us, not all of them, because I know
Sure.
that you want people to actually get to know you more. So just share maybe 5 of them of your 9 skills that you share with them.
Yeah, I'll tell you the framework. So the framework we
Yeah.
have it set up as is like a puzzle because
Okay.
people are having these initiatives and solutions that are all piecemeal solutions. So we found that it's not working together in the system and integrating the way it needs to. We needed
Mm.
a solution that has to work with all of the systems that they were already working within. And it has to be both personal and professional because both worlds collide, right? And so
Yes.
we structured them in self, other, and together skills. Self
Okay.
skills, the set of skills is how do I manage
Awesome.
my own needs? How do I
Mm-hmm.
manage the negative self-talk that I have? So one of the
Mm-hmm.
most popular skills is self-reflection, not in the way that we're used to doing it though. It's in a way to catch ourselves in the negative story spirals. I always
Mm.
give the neuroscience background. Our brain is scanning the environment to just find what's wrong so that it can protect us. But we need
Mm.
to learn to sit in the discomfort. And before we go to negativity, because we will, we've got to catch that. And that's with a sequence that I teach in every skill about noticing it first. So that's one thing we address. So that set of skills is important. The next set of skills is other skills. So once we can manage ourselves and feel secure and can mitigate that negativity because it's there and make decisions that we feel proud of instead of resentful about,
Mm-hmm.
then we can create a space for other people so that we can respond more effectively to their needs. And
Mm.
that's really important. I work a lot in those skills. And that way, those
Mm.
behaviors we're seeing with either staff or students, we can tame that and the system becomes so much more stabilized. So, that last set of skills is the together skills, how to share space together.
It's
There's so much more to it, but that's the gist.
collaboration. I love that.
Collaboration is a big piece.
It's a very massive space. And I just love that you are actually focusing on self. And I feel as leaders, it's not always blaming others, but really thinking about where we are in our journey. And when it starts with us, and as you were saying, we are clear about where we are, our self-awareness, it makes such a difference. It's because we are able to actually connect better. Me, I'm full on for connection because I feel this is what is missing in the educational system, connecting with people so they can feel heard. As you were saying, I love that even through your program, you put time first to listen to your audience. You put time to listen to your I wouldn't say your customers, but people that hired you. And it's amazing because it means that you don't just go and do your work just for the sake of doing it. You take time to listen to people, you pause, and you want to meet where they are in their journey. So that's such a great leadership skill. So thank you, Charlie, for doing
Thank you.
what you do in schools. So, okay, one more question. So if you could offer educational leaders one powerful mindset shift right now, one next step that would make the biggest impact right now in their life, what would it be?
I would teach them how to let staff know when they've met their limit and then how to
Mm.
respect their own limit. So
Mm.
oftentimes we talk about boundaries, we talk about having other people respect those boundaries, but really goes back to self and it's about how do I know I've reached my limit and how do I effectively communicate that I've reached that limit, even when the other person doesn't want to hear it. Because other
Mm.
people are not going to respect our limits. So we need to respect our own limits because other people either won't or they can't or they don't know how
Mm.
to. So it really is up to us. So I think leaders can have that conversation and it doesn't take very long. How do you know that you've reached your limit? So doing that work, that's what we do in our workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And then what can we effectively do to respect our own limit?
I love that. Boundaries, as you're saying, it's so key. And most people sometimes they don't even know what are their boundaries themselves. They don't know like what are their triggers. And they because obviously they lack self-reflection. So you already like spoke about very, I think, insightful components, the self-reflection journey, the self-awareness journey, as also the connection to others and limiting your like creating your boundaries as well. It's so key. And I feel this is how I would say that they would strive under pressure. So, okay, I know that your keynote speech is thriving under pressure. So, um, just give us one sentence that speaks out about this motto, thriving under pressure. What would you say?
It's essentially about having hope for the future of your role and being
Mm.
able to work within a system that is demanding, but to be able to thrive and actually love the work you do.
I love it. Concise, love the work you do. And I feel we need to hear that. Education is such a beautiful system. It's such a beautiful career choice. But as you were saying, many people lose the passion and they feel burnt out, they feel pressured. And as you're saying, is really creating boundaries while loving what we're doing. So thank you everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you, Charlie, for being with us. Don't forget to register for my free masterclass from educator to CEO if you want to grow into your entrepreneurial journey and how you can step into a CEO mindset. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Charlie. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Thank you for listening to this episode and make sure you connect with us on Instagram at The Case for Success. Check also my link tree and become an affiliate of the Success Guide for Teens Academy, a program that will empower your school community as a parent, teacher, and high school senior leader. Do not hesitate to reach out, comment, and share. Until then, see you in the next episodes.